Hey, welcome to the COVID-21 podcast with me, your host, Nathaniel Thrush.
And me, your co-host, Charlie Summers.
And so today we're going to be covering the news and what's basically been going on in the world right now with impeachment and whatnot. We're really kind of at a turning point in American political history at the moment, and the future is pretty unclear, and it could kind of shoot off into several different directions depending on what happens and what unfolds over the next few days. So we have a lot to cover. Impeachment, what happened in Georgia, the sort of realignment of the Democratic Party and the realignment of the Republican Party as well.
And the realignment of the South.
So there's a lot of really interesting things that are going on right now. But without further ado, first, let's get into, impeachment, which is led by our very own Jamie Raskin of Montgomery County.
And Lou and Cicelyne. But Jamie Raskin is the impeachment manager, and he is our congressman.
Yeah, so that's pretty epic.
Yeah, no, I'm, honestly just amazed more than anything at Jamie Raskin, because, the fact that he could, within a week, lose his own son, bear, an attack on the Capitol, and then, start drafting articles of impeachment against the president, after he also spearheaded, the impeachment cause last year as well. He was one of the first Democrats to support impeachment for Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, no, the fact, I feel like he's also played a pretty large role in shifting the Democratic Party left. And he's a progressive, but he's kind of solidified himself as part of, this kind of establishment.
Yeah. Raskin kind of serves a pretty unifying role in the party, relatively speaking. I think it's pretty unique.
Definitely.
His position, because he's sort of, he garners the support of people ranging from really Pelosi herself to AOC, which is a pretty broad range in the party. So he's a pretty astonishing figure, especially with considering, what recently happened and what he underwent with the passing of his son.
And I mean, I think that a part of the reason why he is such a unifying figure is because of the fact that he's a constitutional scholar.
Yes.
And the fact, he kind of reminds me of RBG in the way that they kind of justify, I guess, progressive arguments, because they both do it from a place of, they kind of both subvert textualism in a way, even though he's not a judge, but he's really good at justifying progressive causes through the Constitution itself, and you can tell that he understands, history.
100%. Yeah, I mean, he poses everything from a very constitutionalist lens, which is pretty unique for someone of his political standing in the party, someone that far left. Traditionally, the more constitutionalist figures are towards the center or even towards the right. They're more towards the center wings of both parties, with figures like Ben Sasse, who are also very savvy, constitutionally. So he serves a very unique role, especially as a constitutional scholar. I think it's from... it was from Washington.
He was at American University.
He was at American, okay, cool. Yeah. And he's just a very, very interesting figure. Very happy to have him as our representative. He knows Charlie pretty well, and I've spoken to him a couple times too.
I worked for him for a bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he gave you, he did give you a college rec, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Give me a few handshakes.
Yeah,
But
that's
he's
pretty sick.
Also, it's really difficult to tell where he's kind of gonna go. I could see him being a senator. He has what it takes to be a senator. I could totally see him running for governor of Maryland, because he really likes local politics, and he really likes, this is part of the reason why he wrote me a college rec, is because he engages a lot in general with kids in this area and with teenagers in this area.
Yeah.
And so, you could totally just see him doing pretty much anything.
Yeah, I would say it would make more sense for him to pursue senator than to pursue governor, because of, what he does in national politics.
Yeah, I could see that too.
He is a figure who's very engaged with our, local community. We know him pretty well. Certainly a lot better than we knew Van Hollen. I guess we were younger back then, but Raskin is very easy to reach out to.
He's super easy to reach out to, and he has his office in a very accessible area, his district office in a very accessible area.
It's in Tacoma, right?
It used to be in Silver Spring,
Oh, it's in. Okay. Yeah.
but now COVID, and it was it was like a
Mm-hmm.
that was more of a campaign. That was a campaign office, I think, in Silver Spring. So it was district offices in Tacoma, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, and hearing him speak just makes me proud to be from
Yeah.
here. It's very cool to have like a representative like that.
Did you know that he came to my friend's Eagle Scout ceremony? Because like usually when people become Eagle Scouts, like
Mm-hmm.
the governor and the representative are invited, right? As like a formality, but it never really happens. Like they never really go.
Yeah,
But Jamie Raskin went to his.
that's insane. I do think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
but-
he doesn't know.
Yeah.
It was really fucking weird, man.
Yeah,
But,
that's pretty funny. Did you go to that?
Oh
did you
yeah, I
just-
went to it, and then I saw Jamie Raskin.
Oh shit, yeah.
And that was before I was
That's pretty
voting for him.
cool.
I was like, yeah, I
That's-
saw you talk at my school.
That's pretty dang cool. I mean, like, yeah.
I love
So
it.
moving on, back to impeachment. Itself.
Impeachment.
Yeah, I will say, even with Raskin, as much as I love him, the amount of Liz Cheney, like, oh, come on, just stop talking about Liz Cheney. Listen, I get it.
You know why?
I know, I mean, dude, I know why, but like, it's freaking Liz Cheney, dude. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. If you can't tell our political leanings, we're pretty far left. At least I am. He's also pretty left. But yeah, Liz Cheney is such a prick. Like, oh my
Oh yeah,
God.
she's the worst. She's worse.
She's
She's
the
like.
worst.
I think that like politically though, and like this is something I think the difference between you and me is like I don't really fault like politics. I don't know. Like I disagree obviously with like the. I mean I don't like Steny Hoyer all that much. I love Jamie Raskin. But
Yeah,
like
Steny is just kind of, he's
Steny
he's
Hoyer.
a big name. He's like,
he's getting
whatever.
primaried soon, I think.
Yeah,
Just
it's
kidding.
not surprising. He'll win though. I mean,
By Wilkes.
yeah.
What's her name? Wilkes. Something Wilkes. But Steny. I don't know. I think that with Liz Cheney, like, to invoke her to try and get more House Republicans to vote on impeachment,
That's
to vote
fair.
for impeachment, like,
Yeah.
okay. But it is emotionally, it takes an emotional toll,
I can't stand it. I just can't stand, like, she's so horrible.
She's not
in
a
so
moderate
many ways.
Republican by any means.
She's literally far right. I mean, that's
she's
why they
far
were
right.
invoking her name. They were not doing like Kinzinger or whatever, however you pronounce his name, because like first of all, he's a no name. Second of
Yeah.
all, like he's not basically a Democrat. He's not a Democrat. But moderate Republicans, he's a moderate.
He's not, okay, he's like a moderate like, if Larry
Yeah.
Hogan's a left-wing Republican, he's a moderate Republican.
Yeah, he's
Kinzinger.
to the right of Hogan. Hogan is not. I'd say Baker is the most. Baker or Phil Scott, I think. The
Baker's
Vermont
pretty
guy.
lefty.
Yeah, he's pretty left. It's almost Rockefeller levels. I mean, for a Republican, I'm not saying they're left people. Let's get that straight. These people are not left wing.
Yeah, I mean, like,
yeah.
liberal
These people are
Republicans
pretty
have been
far
dead
right.
since Reagan.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, to invoke the chair of the
Mm-hmm.
House Republican Conference, like if the House
interesting.
Republican, like, I don't know, it bears weight, and I think that this can either doom Cheney or it can.
Or it can elevate her.
It could elevate. I feel like it could elevate her because I feel like Trumpism is gonna live on in the Republican Party, but
Mm-hmm.
people are gonna get over it pretty fast.
Will the base though?
The base is gonna stay.
McConnell's very eager. McConnell's the worst. McConnell is very eager though to ditch Trump, and Liz
and
Cheney
McConnell
is
doesn't have
definitely.
long. But with Liz Cheney and with Tom Cotton,
I mean, McConnell. Listen, his days are numbered. I mean, have you seen his hands? Like,
oh true.
I mean, like, anyway, yeah, but with Cheney, she's eyeing, she's eyeing the McConnell wing, I guess you could call it. It's not really a wing, but like, you know what I mean.
The wing
She's
of
definitely
Republicans,
looking at
yeah.
McConnell and she's going in his direction. She's seeing where the wind's blowing.
Yeah.
The issue is the base. So where's the base gonna be? And like, this is, I mean, it looks like the GOP is definitely straying from the base.
The GOP is gonna stray because like Trump is like a drug.
Yeah.
Right. So like the longer it's like people are hooked on him because people look at him and say, "Oh, I want to be this like cool billionaire guy," but like it doesn't, or like they see like the fact that he's like kind of disgusting. Like he appeals to people's worst instincts. But once he's gone, and I'm sure he's probably not going to be gone from political life as a whole, but like, we're going to see Trumpism live on through like people like Tom Cotton, who are, further right on policing and, pretty much the same on immigration.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole America First thing. But I still don't think the Republican Party is going to be successful. But I think that during this time where the Republican Party doesn't have the energy that it did during Trump, Liz Cheney is going to start surpassing people like McCarthy. But I don't know. I don't
Certainly. Know. I mean, McCarthy's
he's stupid.
I really can't imagine that man
He's fucking stupid.
Yeah, he is. I just can't fucking imagine that guy as, like, the majority leader. Or, I mean, the speaker.
Yeah.
Like, that would just be ridiculous.
To be fair.
Like...
Can you imagine Paul... Like... we were too young,
okay,
but, like, imagine Paul...
Listen. I mean, no, Paul Ryan is just... He's somewhat intelligent. Paul Ryan's intelligent. I mean, Boehner is more comparable, to be honest.
Boehner was a... Paul Ryan, like...
Yeah.
Oh my god. Republican speakers were...
They're just like... But Kevin McCarthy. Have you heard that dude speak? He literally sounds like a toad. Like,
yeah.
Maybe that's not a good analogy, but, like... I don't know. He just reminds me of a toad. I don't know why. Hopefully you guys can understand what I mean. The people... No one's gonna be listening to this, but whatever.
It's chill.
Yeah, it's chill.
But, yeah, no, McCarthy's not gonna be, like... He also misspeaks. He is not... He can't unite the party. He's gonna kill the party if he's in a position of power for too long. Yeah. Cotton could unite the party.
Cotton's an interesting one.
Did you know that Bill Kristol's son works for Tom Cotton?
Jesus Christ. Of course. I mean...
Isn't that... Imagine,
like, I don't respect
imagine being
that.
him.
Yeah. Like, these... Not the Lincoln Project guys necessarily, because Lincoln Project's... Whatever. I don't want to get into that.
He couldn't unite the Lincoln Project guys, and he could not unite people like...
I'm saying there are some people who semi-supported Biden or were just anti-Trumpers.
The people who are the Lincoln Project, and I maintain this, regardless of what you think of the Lincoln Project, they did not want split-ticket voting. They wanted vote for Biden, vote for House Democrats, vote for Senate Democrats.
Yes. No, the people who run the Lincoln Project, I don't think they're going to go back.
They're not going back.
But there is a segment of people in the Republican Party who either behind closed doors or relatively publicly were anti-Trump. That will be very pro someone like Tom Cotton, who is just as bad, or in fact, I would argue worse than Donald Trump.
Yeah,
now maybe not worse than Trump in terms of like handling a pandemic.
His campaigning, he's gonna be, of course, he's gonna be he would be functional, but like, I also think that, like, in terms of campaigning, like, could he really create a stable base? I don't know.
I mean, these guys are like, they don't actually live in Arkansas or Missouri, like Holly too. You know, they went to Harvard and Yale, and they're like, they look like twigs. You know, they both do. So like, I'm skeptical, and they're just. And all their main campaign strategy is say the most outrageous thing that they can. Just get the news to, run them in headlines.
I mean, if you think about it, there's never really been a Republican... Like, I don't think Tom Cotton's going to be president. Of course not. A lot of people say, oh, Tom Cotton's going to be president. Like, I don't think that... I think he's probably going to run, but, like, maybe this is going to age badly. But he... Like, think about the Republicans in the past who have been successful. Like, Reagan... H.W. was an anomaly, Bush, and Trump.
H.W. was he was the VP of an incredibly... Well, Reagan was not incredibly popular, but he was electorally extremely successful.
Yeah.
So, like, H.W. wasn't necessarily an anomaly. Again, it's almost like Biden to Obama, but Biden was also a backlash to Trump.
Yeah.
Obama was exceedingly electorally successful, especially when you compare him to Trump, Biden, and Bush. And even Clinton, while Clinton did better than Obama electorally, that was only because of vote splitting. So, in terms of their, like, ascent to power, Biden and HW are relatively similar figures. Neither of them are particularly charismatic, but they're both... They were both deemed as, I mean, whether this is true or not, competent to the American people, Although, obviously, Dukakis and Trump are very different opponents. So,
But, like, HW was an anomaly, but, like, you think about... I don't know. I just think that, like, based off of who the Republicans nominate, Tom Cotton has a very low chance of getting nominated.
Yeah.
by
I think it'll be
the GOP.
If the impeachment does not happen, which by the way, Trump will not get removed from office. Let's just make that clear. What will happen with the impeachment if it passes, which is a huge if, and depends on a lot of things going right. It'll basically not allow Trump to run for office again. Yeah. So I do think the people who could win the 2024, I don't know about Cotton or Hawley. I do think a Cruz, maybe a Haley, maybe another Trump. And if Trump himself runs again and is serious, he could, he would win. Pretty obviously. Like, if there's been preliminary polling and Trump blows everyone else out of the water, obviously. He's the sitting president.
Because without Trump, the GOP, it's not neutered, but it's going to be less powerful, which makes me, and this combined with, the attack on the Capitol, kind of puts 2022 at least up in the air.
I really don't have high hopes for Dems in the House in 2022.
Yeah, me too.
Just because of redistricting, especially, even if Dems have an actually decent year compared to what was originally expected. But also, moving away from that, another thing, this literally just popped into my head. A QAnon person also could be a front runner. That could happen. I don't think a QAnon person would be able to be successful electorally, but I think they could do well in the GOP primary. Like a Bogart, Taylor Greene, fucking Madison Cawthorn or whatever.
Madison Cawthorn could totally be the fact okay, he is I kind of fluctuate between thinking either Madison Cawthorn is going to be a complete failure or he's actually going to be electorally successful. He is really good at calling fucking he can literally call his opponent a simp for Nancy Pelosi and then rant on about bipartisanship and come off as genuine. And he also made this ad.
What an ass, dude.
He's a fucking Nazi.
I can't I cannot imagine. I mean, no, this will happen because the GOP is so bad.
He could totally be a Republican.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I don't know about that. He is not. I think it could be a QAnon woman, as well.
It could be one of
them. Because the problem with him is that he's too much like Hawley or Cotton. Not that.
Well, he's more like Hawley than Cotton.
Yeah, well, whatever. He is more like Hawley. Because the way he talks. Cotton's much more, establishment.
Cotton is very
but, extreme.
He's extreme. If Cotton fucking wins anything, luckily he doesn't really seem that, it would be difficult to get him to be a popular figure, but if Cotton wins, the presidency,
I don't see that happen. He seems
I don't see it happening either.
He seems like if he were to be in the primary, he seems like a Santorum or, Rubio figure. Someone who's kind of does decently.
He could be a
do
Rubio
that well.
figure. He could be a Rubio figure.
If you remember in 2012, also Santorum. He reminds me a lot of Santorum.
Santorum is.
Obviously they're extremely different because Santorum is moderate Pennsylvania. Again, not moderate.
He's not moderate. Santorum's campaign bus: leadership for life, marriage, and religious liberty.
Yeah.
Santorum.
Anyway, I do think a QAnon person, any of them, they could do well in the primary.
Yeah.
They're so insane, and then the overall GOP is detaching, and so that's creating a dangerous rift. And again, we literally saw that, come to life on January 6th, 2020.
And I mean, if youth turnout, for the primaries, for the GOP primaries, there was that Economist YouGov poll that came out today, showing that 9% of 65 plus year olds thought that QAnon was favorable. And then, the highest favorability rating, 18 to 35.
Oh, 18 to 35, yeah. It was 18% favorable.
24% favorable.
Oh, it was 24%? Dang. Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, QAnon is a real threat.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the wild card.
And we're going to see, but I think that you're probably right in that we're going to see somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Or Mary Miller as well.
Probably not Mary Miller.
People weren't talking about her
Mary
as
Miller's
much.
gonna... She's gonna get phased out pretty quickly.
She literally said Hitler was right. I mean, I don't know how you can survive that, but seriously, the GOP is so crazy. The GOP is so crazy, dude.
Have you noticed that there's these, the Kim Klacik ad for Baltimore?
I
remember watching that, the one where she was walking across the streets of Baltimore saying Democrats don't care about Black lives, and then she was
oh, I do think.
Yeah. So that and the Lauren Boebert, I will bring my Glock to the Capitol, or I will bring my Glock to Congress. And this one Madison Cawthorn ad about how his opponent is a simp.
Yeah, Mo Davis.
Yeah, Mo Davis.
Can't believe that dude represents Asheville. I can't
I know,
believe
it's fucking
that.
insane. I can't believe Mo Davis lost. I mean, it makes sense that Mo Davis lost so hard, but like...
Well, the map, it's not...
Yeah, the map...
It's hardly even gerrymandered at that point. It's just because you have Asheville, which is a blue bastion, and it's surrounded by... it's surrounded by deep red Appalachia. And the deep red Appalachia outnumbers the Asheville core urban area. So, yeah.
But, like, all of those ads looked the exact same. Like, it was the candidate walking, and then words appearing on buildings.
Yeah, like I'm sure it was the same. I'm sure if you dug into it, it was probably the same ad.
Probably like a Republican Joe Trippy. But, I think that the GOP primaries in 2024 are gonna be fucking wild.
And yeah, it's gonna be fucking insane.
And people are just gonna be driven crazy by Biden.
Oh my god, I can't imagine. Like, this dude is literally you're fucking like losing your shit over Joe Biden, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. Like, the most boring dude ever to hold this office. That's not quite true, but he's like the most boring dude. He's so boring. Like, he's the most boring dude to hold this office since the late 19th century.
I think that Democrats, what Democrats need to do is they just need to give people money.
What do you mean by explain?
For 2 years, like, to improve electoral chances, stimulus bills are essential, and improving healthcare in a way that's tangible. Like, Obamacare, of course, was an improvement, but, like, I mean, it's gonna be hard to do because I was talking about this yesterday. It's gonna be difficult to do because there's still a very powerful kind of, like, right-wing media apparatus.
There is, but I will say, the good part about that is it is dissipating and it's splitting up.
Splitting up, yeah.
Fox News, for the first time a couple weeks ago, not even a couple weeks ago, I think it was a couple days ago, actually had lower ratings than both CNN and MSNBC.
Yeah, I saw
Fox News, which consistently does, like, before that, like, during the Trump era, it's...
that makes you question who's not watching Fox News and what else are they watching.
There's a lot of different shit to watch. So you have, like, the Newsmaxes and the OANs of the world, but you also have just a huge apparatus on the internet, like with, like, Kirk and stuff, like Charlie Kirk. He's one of the few that still kind of has a platform, which is interesting, considering the fact that he really did, kind of incite a lot of this shit. He's funny. I mean, he's funny to watch.
He's funny.
Like watching that, watching his Georgia commentary was really funny because he was slowly realizing that they were gonna lose.
And also, I think that the GOP, like, I don't want to say this because I don't want to jinx it, but I think that the GOP, all signs point to the GOP going through a period of turmoil, right, for the next few years. The issue is, how is it going to affect them electorally?
If they fuck it up so much that they don't win the House, that would be fantastic for us as progressives. Yeah. Because, I mean, the House should be a layup. They're only a few seats away, and a few races that hung only by a couple points, and that can easily be undone by, like, states. First of all, California has a nonpartisan districting thing, so Republicans are going to keep their races, and then places like Florida and Texas, where Dems have a significant number of seats, are completely Republican controlled, and so is New Hampshire, which is currently two Democratic seats. Maryland has a Republican governor, which is the most heavily gerrymandered state for the Democrats, where we are.
But also, the only thing Hogan's doing is appointing a civilian advisory board.
There's a chance that the Republicans get a seat in Maryland.
Let's see if Stone stays in politics, and that group of people, the people that, kind of helped engineer lower turnout among Republicans in Georgia. With
Linwood.
What's that pack called? Linwood. What's Roger Stone's pack called that was just reactivated?
The Restore America's Greatness.
Yeah, Restore America's Greatness.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's go.
Jesus Christ, it's so ridiculous. These people are so ridiculous. And now let's segue to Georgia, which is the piece of very good news.
It's good to have the Senate.
So that was a really, really good night. Like, you know, we were on a call together and we were slowly realizing that the Dems had it. Oh my god, that felt so good. It was like
The emotion that I experienced was when Howie's bet hit. That was it.
from Uncut. Jesus.
That was the
You
emotion.
know. I mean, the energy was in our direction.
Yeah.
We had two fantastic candidates. Specifically, Warnock was amazing. Like,
Warnock was fantastic. Purdue and Loeffler, like, first off, Purdue used to be like a whole, like, he used to be just stereotypical Reagan Republican, right? Business owner, motherfucker. Loeffler she was on the chair of Planned Parenthood and ran a basketball team and had Mitt Romney as her phone background.
she's from, like, Illinois.
Yeah.
She has, like, a flat Midwestern accent. And she's, like,
A robot.
before 2018, she was, like, a pretty moderate, you know, just, like, rich, pretty racist still, but, like, rich white lady.
She was a rich Republican.
Like,
She would probably, I don't know a lot, but, like, she could probably, like, a Rockefeller Republican, maybe? I don't know.
Nah. But, like, a Romney. She was basically, like, your average sort of, like, very wealthy suburban white lady, you know?
Yeah.
And she was, like, you know, she was like, I'm gonna marry the CEO of the New York Stock Exchange. And she was like, okay, I'm bored now. What do? I'll buy a WNBA team. And then she was appointed by Governor Brian Kemp after she bought the most highly valued property in the entire city of Atlanta.
She lived the American dream, right?
Yeah, she lived the American dream, you know. So yeah, she kind of, you know, she chased the bag.
She secured it, and then she lost it.
I mean, she's still a billionaire. During the pandemic, she increased her wealth by twofold. Not scummy at all. I can't believe that she does not have a southern accent. Like, that's so weird.
Loeffler.
Okay, she did lose by 2 points in the state of Georgia, but you win 49% of the vote by literally just putting on denim jeans
And by attacking the black church.
and calling her opponent a radical liberal. And then the other guy, he didn't show up at all. He quarantined for the last, like, 5 days.
Yeah, Purdue was worse. He campaigned worse.
You know, he did campaign worse. I think Loeffler was at a disadvantage because she is, first of all, people are sexist.
People are sexist. She's running against Warnock, who is literally a fucking pastor of the Ebenezer Baptist Church. So, like,
Which does appeal to Georgia more. I would say, like, Ossoff ran a fucking insane campaign. I definitely align more with Warnock than I do with Ossoff, but his campaign was insane. He like, I have never seen a Democrat, like, in my lifetime do the negatives. So,
Yeah, exactly. He does the negative super fucking well.
Yeah.
And if Democrats want to succeed, they should take a hint from him. Like,
Yeah. Again, he did lose his race in the 6th district. Yeah, in the 6th district, but that before him, a couple elections before him, that was Newt Gingrich's district. So from 2016 to 2017, it went from 61% Republican to 2017, where it was 49% Republican.
exactly.
That just tells you, like, he literally he shifted his district like 30 points to the left,
Yeah.
and then Lucy McBath did the rest. And then he flipped the state, you know, alongside
Insane.
Biden and Warnock. Yeah, but this is a lesson for Democrats if they want to succeed in the midterms. We really need to go hard for the House, okay? Like,
Democrats need a way to control the narrative, and the $2,000 stimulus check was a great way to do that.
100%.
And Warnock and Ossoff did really well on that front. Like, I don't know, they just ran fantastic campaigns.
They both did. Pretty different campaigns from one another, but both were very, very good. Much better than that dude Cal Cunningham. Let's be real. He failed. I'm sorry.
People had hopes in him. He was generally boring. The ground game
Yeah.
was not great. The thing is, there's a lot of activists in North Carolina who were really that weren't really associated with, like, Cunningham's campaign, but, like, that were really working to get, like, Biden and Cunningham elected. But
Yeah.
the thing is that Biden and Cunningham didn't really engage North Carolina activists that much.
We just need to run people of color as
also
well.
run people of
Because, like,
color.
the thing about the North Carolina cities, my bad, is that North Carolina has a lot of pretty sizable urban areas that all vote very Democratic, upwards of 60% each.
Yeah.
And so what you do is you have to energize young turnout, first of all.
Exactly.
Then you also have to energize black turnout and Latinx turnout as well. You also recognize the Lumbee Indians as a tribe, because if you know North Carolina, it's one of the few states in the East Coast with a sizable native population, and they flipped heavily towards Trump from 2012 to 2016. Robeson County, which is mostly native, Lumbee, it flipped from I think it was 56% Dem, so 56% Republican. And then in 2020, it flipped even more, and it was 59% Republican. Because all Trump did was he recognized them as a nation, and if Biden wants to do anything, he should recognize them. He give them further recognition, which would give him a lot more votes on that part of the state.
Yeah, Biden came late to that, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he barely as president. If he just does that, that guarantees him at least a couple thousand votes.
Biden did not pay that much attention. I think North Carolina was one of Biden's. He just didn't really. He was focused on the Midwest, and rightfully so.
Yes. Yes.
So he, I don't really fault him. You can't pick up every state, but he did not do much in general.
Yeah. He did not. And North Carolina is a very flippable
it's a
place.
flippable state, and you can
Yeah, no, it's again, North Carolina has several urban areas with a lot of young people and a lot of people of color. It is a good recipe for Democratic success. We just need good ground game. We need to increase turnout in those cities, and we need to slightly increase the margins.
Yeah.
So in Mecklenburg, which is where Charlotte is, you want to probably increase it from 62 to 65. In Wake, you want to increase it from 60 to 62. In Cumberland, which is where Fayetteville is, you want to get it up to 60. In the Greensboro area, you also want to get it up to around 62. In Buncombe, which is where Asheville is, you want to get it up to 60. So Democrats had slightly worse performances in all those cities than they need to win, which is largely because of the slight tilt towards the GOP in communities of color, and specifically immigrant communities. And also, again, young turnout made huge differences in Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. And North Carolina has a lot of young people, but the young people did not turn out as much, especially in areas like Asheville. Because Joe Biden admittedly is not as, energizing the candidate for some people, especially, people in the Asheville crowd. So in a place like Asheville, you want to replicate what the Dems did in Madison, increase turnout a lot, and also move it to the left by 5 points. So yeah, in Pennsylvania, for example, Democrats went from +9 in 2016 to +20 in 2020. In Wisconsin, they went from +4 in 2016 to +16 in 2020. In North Carolina, they went from +5 in 2016 to, I believe, around +7. I need to look at that. They didn't increase it as much.
Also, can I just say something about North Carolina in 2008?
Yeah.
Usually, this is something that's used in the South a lot because, okay, so there's a difference between the South and the Midwest with voter turnout, right? To improve Democrats' chances in the South, since a lot of non-voters are people of color and younger people, you can win through just surgical, are you registered? Knocking on people's doors, canvassing, saying, in cities and suburbs, saying, are you registered to vote? If not, here's a card, go register to vote. That's what happened in Georgia with Stacey Abrams. And
Exactly.
But in the Midwest, in places like that, it's not like that because a lot of non-voters are also white working class. In Detroit, you need to increase turnout, of course, but with just voter turnout in general, a lot of non-voters are.
I think we'd be remiss without mentioning this. The South, generally speaking, has the lowest, places. Texas and Georgia consistently have some of the lowest voter turnout rates in the country. Minnesota and Wisconsin have the highest. So you have this situation where you don't have that many people to register in Minnesota and Wisconsin. Outside of, Minneapolis and Milwaukee, outside of communities of color that look a lot more like communities in the South than they do, areas elsewhere in their state, demographically. So Milwaukee, Detroit, Philly, you want to use those same sort of strategies. And there are some non-voters, obviously. A lot of them are these sort of like white working class voters who have been disillusioned.
The suburbs of Detroit, correct me if I'm wrong, vote blue, but just, of course, they're suburbs, so not as much. And this was in 2016 at least.
Of Detroit, they broadly voted blue except for Macomb, although they became much more Democratic. Yeah, the one that Ann Arbor's in votes like 70% blue. The one that Oakland voted like 2 points blue in 2016 and like 10 points blue in 2020. So it swung a lot, and Macomb swung a little bit, but it's still red. So like suburbs in general are less blue than obviously the city. But also something that we've seen is that a place like Atlanta used to have very red suburbs outside of like areas where people of color live, specifically DeKalb, Fulton, and Clayton counties. But now we're seeing this trend where areas outside of those core 3 counties are, first of all, diversifying, but second of all, just becoming much more left-leaning. Yep. So Atlanta nowadays looks much more like a city in the Midwest or Northeast with a lot of those surrounding blue counties than it does like in the Southeast, where it's sort of a blue dot in a sea of red. So we're seeing very interesting demographic changes in Georgia as well. Yeah, I think Georgia teaches us a lesson that as well, that we should not run stale candidates. Don't run the most moderate candidate, even in a state like Georgia, which...
Policy is something that both Ossoff and Warnock focused on. And instead of focusing on these kind of... Don't run on values, because values are not what will win you. People vote based on their own interest. Directly connect policy to people's interests, to your constituents' interests.
Connect policy to your platform.
No, and connect the policy that you say you're going to advance to people's own interests, like with the stimulus checks and stuff like that. Yeah. That's what's going to win you elections. And like Ossoff and Warnock did a really great job of that. Cunningham, not so much, because again, a lot of this was focused on Trump and my opponent. And in this case, like, I think that we're seeing a weird kind of shift. Like negative ads did not work as well in 2020.
No,
negative ads did not work against, like, they were less effective, I think, according to Center for American Progress or some shit like that. Like, they did not Biden's negative ads against Trump were not as effective.
With Joe Biden, though, I mean, the thing about the 2020 election was that almost everybody had their mind, they already had their mindset. Like there were 11, I think, what was it, like a week before the election, 11% of people were undecided. A lot of those people weren't even going to vote in the first place, right? Most of them were non-voters. With Biden himself, not that many ads would work for Biden because, on the anti-Trump wave, which was more powerful than the Trump wave.
And to be fair, I should correct this. I think, that same survey also said that Biden's ads that focused on his own character were more effective. I think that might work for increasing turnout among less diverse suburbs.
Yeah, among areas like, areas outside of Phoenix.
Yeah, so I think that just focusing on policy is also just a way. It was definitely a way to win Georgia.
The thing is, you can't just say focus on policy, because you have people like Hillary Clinton, who's a policy wonk, and she lost.
Well, she didn't focus on policy. And she wasn't, she's definitely a policy wonk, but, she's a policy wonk who's not good at campaigns.
So what she did a lot of the time was check out my stance on my website, which does not work. We found that out pretty quick. And, she definitely is a policy wonk. But she also did not talk about policies tangibly.
Yeah.
She also emphasized this a lot in her campaigning, where she was like, oh, that won't work. Even if that's true, that's not an effective way of communicating to voters. What you want to do when you're campaigning is, campaign tangible policies, like what Warnock and Ossoff did. But going further into that, Warnock and Ossoff, specifically Raphael Warnock, he was not afraid to show his colors as a Democrat and as a relative progressive. Obviously, he's walked away from the term socialist recently.
You can't win elections. Again, if you ran, I swear, if Bernie Sanders ran a campaign where he advanced all the same policies and didn't call himself a socialist, he could have won. It's as simple as that.
And I mean, that's essentially what Warnock did. Warnock has incredibly progressive policies if you look at his platform. Ones that nearly match a person like Senator Sanders. or Bernie or Senator Sanders, whatever. He had an incredibly progressive platform, and he was not afraid to show himself as a progressive, and he won the state of Georgia by a full 2 points. That is remarkable. He won Georgia by more than Joe Biden won his home state of Pennsylvania. Putting that in perspective, Joe Biden should have done better in Pennsylvania, but regardless of that.
Also, okay, to be fair, Pennsylvanian Republicans are fucking crazy.
Well, yeah, I mean, but like there is something to be said in a place like Erie County. Like, Erie shifted from Obama plus 17 to Trump plus 1. I feel like that's ridiculous. And it barely shifted in Biden's favor. It was like Biden plus 0.8. Or it might have been Biden plus 1. Like, Biden barely did better than Hillary in the state of Pennsylvania, and most of the places that he did significantly better than Hillary were in the suburbs of Philly.
Yep.
Where he should not have done that well. He should have done well in, like, the Scranton and Wilkes-Barre area.
And he was trying, the sad thing is that he was trying to do that. He was trying to campaign on this kind of, like, he didn't go far on it, is the thing, but he was trying to campaign on this, like, made in America, somewhat protectionist, platform, and you could tell during, that was something that I first caught on to, like, right after he won the primary, was, like, the fact that he shifted to a kind of, like, protectionist, like, he wanted to win the Midwest.
Yeah.
And he saw how well he did, right, against Sanders, who did like really well in the Midwest in 2016 in the primaries. And he saw that and was like, wow, I should probably go. He was like, oh, I should go hard on this, but it didn't work, which is like sad. I don't know. It's
to be fair about his 2020 campaign in the Midwest. No, you are completely right. But again, I'm just gonna be rooting for Bernie here, giving him the benefit of the doubt. Bernie was kind of, doomed by then.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. That's fair.
I mean, but also Joe Biden, he is obviously much more appealing than Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
But how much more appealing was he than Hillary Clinton to these white working class voters?
By much, not so, like...
Yeah, he wasn't. The main shift in these states were young people.
Yeah, it was young people,
like, legitimately.
and like...
Yeah.
In cities.
And just higher turnout.
And suburbs.
Yeah, young people in cities and higher turnout of people of color. People of color did slightly shift to the right.
But also increased, even if they shifted to the right, the increased turnout is still obviously for Democrats.
Philadelphia still went 80% blue, and turnout was way up in Philadelphia.
Yeah, exactly.
So it went 83% blue last time, and it went 80% blue this time. It is a rightward shift, but when you have much higher turnout,
if white people shift somewhat to the left, but still turn out a ton, that's still good for Republicans.
2016 and 2020 are remarkably similar elections. Very few counties flipped, except for suburbs.
Yep.
And even then, not that many suburbs flipped. Georgia's a state that flipped completely. It went 5% more blue. Not a single county flipped for Joe Biden. 1 or 2 counties flipped actually for Trump in the Black Belt. Not a single county flipped for Joe Biden in the state of Georgia, which he flipped by 5 points. And that's all because Hillary Clinton already did a lot of that work of flipping suburban counties blue, but she just wasn't quite there yet. The trends were more in the favor of the Rust Belt shifting red rather than the Sun Belt shifting blue.
Yeah, and it's all a balance. Like, for the next few decades, we're gonna see elections being decided on how well Democrats can shift the Sun Belt, or how well Republicans can shift the Rust Belt. Okay, during the lead up to November, I was wholly convinced that Biden would make huge gains in the Rust Belt. And I had phone banked there.
How so?
I thought.
Did you think that he was gonna flip Ohio?
Not Ohio. I thought that Ohio. I didn't think he was gonna flip Ohio. I thought he was gonna win by much larger margins in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin specifically was a shock. But if you actually look at its electoral history from 2000 onward, there were only 2 elections that were decided by more than a point. Every other election was decided within a point, and those 2 elections were 2008, when it was 13 points, and 2012, when it was like 6 points. It does make sense, historically speaking, that Wisconsin has basically always been within a point, and then just for the Obama years, because obviously Obama was like essentially the best Democratic candidate practically in history, since like LBJ.
Yeah, okay, definitely. But, like, that's the thing. Like, Obama was able to get more of the white working class in Wisconsin than Biden was.
Yes.
Which like, Obama wasn't too long ago. I thought Biden would have made huge gains there. Especially,
yeah.
I wasn't delusional, but I was very wrong about Wisconsin.
Well, thinking about it historically, you have to look at the political forces that were influencing 2008. And that was a very much bluer blue wall. You had a dark blue aisle, you had the Mississippi Valley, which turned red, but you still had that very dark blue, core Union area, which was the blue wall. Now Trump demolished that, and that's not going to go back up.
Like, again, how were people more dissatisfied with Bush Jr.? Those are the people that would have voted for Obama in the Rust Belt. The people who were disappointed about the recession. They were, like, the people who were disillusioned because of the recession. Why is that not happening with Trump? Right? That's the issue.
It's a very different dynamic.
It's a different dynamic, and why?
When you look at Trump's approval rating over time, only in the past week has there been a really drastic shift. Trump's approval rating over time is relatively flat, with some hills and valleys, but it's flat. And when you even compare to Obama, which was flat compared to Bush, you did not have the information markets that we have today.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's because of, the fact that Tucker Carlson is the most watched cable news host now. Stuff like that exactly. Is why Biden wasn't, it's outside of politics at that point. It's just the media that people are consuming.
You have a network of disinformation, essentially informing nearly half the country, around 40% of the country. We've never had, since maybe as you did, prior to the Civil War. During the Bush era, Republicans disapproved of Bush.
Yeah.
Democrats approved of Bush, especially after 9/11.
I think that bipartisanship, though, was on the decline. And the bipartisanship, again, is not something that's necessarily good. The issue isn't that, people aren't coming to compromises more. It's just the fact that, there can't be two different truths that exist in the way that there is now. You can have stark disagreements and different ways of viewing the world, but the fact that there are two different, fundamental truths that exist for different halves of the country, democracy can't exist like that. And flawed democracies can't exist like that. It's just going to lead to a populist dictatorship if it continues like that.
Yeah, I think it definitely boils down to that. The fact that we have two starkly different sources of information in this country.
Yeah. I worry about two things. First off, social media companies doing the right thing and banning conspiracy theories and bigotry on their platforms, which will eventually lead to a kind of explosion in 2024 among the right. And also shifting more mainstream Republicans that might not be a part of Trump's base to, oh, well, look at how these people are getting banned. Maybe Trump was right. Even though it's completely the right thing to do. And that should happen. And that also might break up right-wing media.
And so, as we begin to wrap up, I just want to ask you, one more question. What do you think the future for progressive Democrats is in the United States, especially seeing what happened a couple days ago, which was overshadowed by a lot of things, but with Pelosi nominating Porter, Tlaib, Omar, and Cori Bush to be on the oversight.
I think it's bright. I think that I think there's going to be a lot of frustration with the Biden administration. I think that in the House and the Senate, the thing is that progressives are more unified than ever with the establishment of the Democratic Party at this point, right? And Democrats have also seen that, embracing things like the $2,000 stimulus check is good. It's good electorally, and it's also just correct. So I think that progressives are going to they're going to become the Democratic establishment at some point. And we're going to see people like Pelosi. I'm not as sure about Pelosi, but people like Schumer. Like, Schumer has been trying to push for a Bernie Sanders-esque economic agenda since becoming the minority leader in the Senate.
Yeah, that is something I've
So
noticed.
he's been saying that for a long time, and now there are people like Warnock in the Senate, and Ossoff in the Senate, and I think a lot of Democrats are gonna definitely see the value in pushing stuff like this. I think Pelosi's on her way out. Hakeem Jeffries is probably gonna be the next Speaker of the House. Like, we're gonna see the Democratic Party become something that it has never been. Like, Trump has ushered in a new era of Democratic politics. Because more
Yes.
people understand that if Democratic policies aren't sustainable, then another Trump's gonna get elected, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the future for progressive Democrats is looking bright.
The next 2 years will test a lot, because Democrats have never had this much power.
Yeah.
With sizable progressive wing. We'll see how much good trouble that Bernie can make. I guess
Yeah.
as the chair of the budget, the budgetary committee, he can do a lot of really good stuff. Especially, I mean, listen, I don't want to get into the realm of foreign policy whatsoever, but as the chair of the budget committee, he can dictate where we're spending our money. I think Bernie can have the power to decrease military spending significantly, which will have insanely positive, repercussions, and allow us to spend so much more money elsewhere. As bad as the past week has been for American democracy, there is a bright path that we can take.
The future of America is uncertain, but the future of the Democratic Party is a left-wing one.
Yes. We will see what happens. Let's hope we win 2022. But yeah, I think we're gonna end it here. Whoever is listening, thanks for listening to our ramblings and us interrupting each other a lot. We're gonna get better at that over time.
Maybe.
Hopefully, I think it'll be it'll be a much better podcast to listen to if we don't interrupt each other as much. But yeah, I think we're gonna wrap it up here on that note. And thanks for listening.